for calling this diverse group of witnesses. I expect we may have some lively interaction on the panel, which I always encourage. We're at a time where the trucking industry is, I think, reaching a tipping point. The pressures on carriers and drivers are extraordinary these days, and the policies that we enact here and in the next surface bill will have a major impact on public safety, carrier operations, truck driver wages, and working conditions. Carriers have set the expectation they can and will deliver more goods faster at lowest possible cost, but unfortunately, in many cases, drivers absorb the uncertainties of the goods movement and the pressures that are resulting, everything from congestion, wait time at ports, shipper facilities, fluctuating fuel prices. The drivers, and some are compensated only by the mile, not by the hour. They're often faced with the false choice of getting a day's wages or getting adequate rest and following hours of service rules. Even as their days get longer, many truck drivers haven't seen their wages increase. Sometimes when states move forward with progressive laws to provide truck drivers with paid sick leave or paid rest breaks, there's a tremendous attempt by the industry to preempt those rules, that rule of law. And given these pressures, there's no surprise that rigid, complex legislation such as hours of service feel unworkable. But we can't paper this over. We've got to write rules or mandate rules that make sense. We can't stretch drivers even thinner or force them to drive unreasonable hours and therefore tired and unsafely. We're going to debate about why there's a driver shortage. It's simple in my mind. If you want to attract and retain quality drivers, you need policies that ensure that trucking remains a good job with adequate compensation. It's also not surprising that safety indicators are moving the wrong direction, as mentioned by the chair. Large truck facilities have disturbingly climbed every year since 2009 in real terms, percentage of miles traveled. Saving lives is a very, very strong objective of this committee, and having better safety on the highways. More of the debates recently have all been about productivity, flexibility, and other disagreements. But we need to take positive steps and encourage DOT to take positive steps in this area. I think it's time for a new approach. I hear a lot from stakeholders, my colleagues, about the unintended consequences of federal rules. Rather than rendering existing rules worthless through exemptions, let's be intentional. Let's take a fresh look at a host of things that are not working in our system of goods movements and how they interact. Let's figure out how Congress and the administration can maintain the highest levels of safety with clear, enforceable regulations, but in a way that acknowledges the diversity of operations, rapidly changing nature of the industry. I also want to highlight cross-border trucking. I opposed NAFTA 25 years ago, in good part because it granted broad authority for Mexican carriers to drive on U.S. roads, despite the very significant discrepancies in safety standards between the two countries. And I am pleased that Ambassador Lighthizer and the administration have been listening, and the USMCA includes language that will reinforce the rights of the U.S. to limit grants of operating authority for Mexican carriers if it will harm U.S. companies or drivers. Now, Mr. Byrd, in your testimony, you lay out troubling ways in which U.S. companies undermine these efforts to protect the domestic labor market and U.S. truck drivers by employing drivers from Mexico through B-1, and I think Congress needs to take a hard look at that. Mr. Speer, you talk about the industry's opposition to tolling, and I share many of your concerns there. Unfortunately, the only concrete proposal we've had out of this administration would be to shift all of the burden to the states to maintain the national system of infrastructure and goods movement, with a proliferation of tolling in the states. Now, the president himself has rejected that, but unfortunately, that is the only proposal we have seen. So I think this committee is going to have to look very hard at tolling and congestion pricing, because states are moving ahead, and we need to look at what the implications are for the federal system and the future of the movement of goods and people in this country. Welcome the witnesses and look forward to your testimony. Thank you, ma'am.